begin the meeting now. I want to just make sure that everyone begins the meeting with muted microphones. I think everybody is muted. Someone named Madison R. I, for some reason, cannot mute you. If you can mute yourself. And we'll just begin with introductions. There are 5 voting members of Traffic Council. I'm one member. My name is David Kozis. I am the transportation coordinator from the Public Works Department. Other voting members that I see at the beginning of the meeting are Captain Devine from the Traffic Bureau, Ned Codd, Director of Transportation for DPW. I see our citizen representative, Mitch Fishman, and alternate Margot Spiller. I don't see any city councilor on right now at the beginning of the meeting. We would expect a city councilor to attend.
David, Councilor Downs was there before, but she was told it was 7:30, so she'll be back on soon.
Okay. Let me just take one moment. Be right back. Captain Devine, what were you saying about Councilor Downs?
We were on before 7 p.m. We obviously both kind of thought it might be a 7 p.m. start, and I told her 7:30, so I expect her to kind of check on in at 7:30 to be the city council.
So we probably will have Councilor Downs joining us as the 5th voting member of Traffic Council. We're also joined tonight by Natalie Nicolazzo, who will be helping to run the meeting. She's with DPW. And we'll just jump right into our first item. So our first item tonight is TC 2225, David Kozis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting to change the parking regulations on Howley Avenue to ensure access for emergency, trash, and recycling vehicles. This item we actually heard a couple months ago at our June 12th Traffic Council meeting. We had a good discussion and then we voted to hold. I have a couple slides from that meeting that we can go over real quickly. This is the location of Howley Avenue off of Parker Street. All of these slides are from our June 12th meeting. It's a very narrow dead-end street. It's only 15 or 16 feet wide. Right now, there's no parking restrictions on the books on either side of this 15 or 16 foot wide street. The reason this item was docketed originally is because we received a complaint from Waste Management back in May that we were told that it becomes an issue for them when there's a parked vehicle on Howley Avenue. They're not able to do their jobs. They're not able to go down the street and pick up the trash or recycling. Sometimes they have to come back multiple times to be able to pick up the trash. It's not efficient. And they asked what we were able to do. And also, when I was going to check out the street back in June, I happened to notice that I was there right when the yard waste employees were there, and they also were not able to get down the street. So I was there just watching the yard waste employees, picking up all the yard waste and dragging it down to the end of the street. So we held this item back in June on a 4-to-1 vote to collect more information. So since then, I have heard from the fire department and from Waste Management The fire department has told us that they responded to 11 calls in the past 25 years, and they have no documentation supporting access issues, and also that they would be hesitant to create a no parking situation on the street if it's not been a problem for the residents for 30 years or so. Also, I reached out to Waste Management, and what we heard from them is that it's an on and off issue. It wasn't a problem, in the last couple of weeks. And they said it is okay for us to take no action on this item, to just leave everything how it is. And with the thought that if it continues to be an issue, we could redocket the item in the future. So the recommended action for this item is to take no action, to leave everything how it is, to not put in any parking restrictions on the street. And so that's where we are with this item. So that is the recommendation. And now I'm going to open it up to public comment. If there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item before we vote, if you could raise your hand, and I will be able to call on you. And I don't see anyone with their hands up. Let me just look through. And I do see we're joined by Councillor Block from Ward 4. Councillor Block, you're not the voting city councillor at this meeting, are you? Or are you today? You are on PS&T, right? Okay, I'm not sure. And I do not see Councillor Downs. And I don't see anyone raising their hands on this item. So the recommendation is to take no action. Are there any comments from any city councilor or any member of traffic council before we vote?
David, this is Randy Block speaking. I'm sorry, I'm having a little technical difficulties here, but I am not the designated voting member from PS&T.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Councilor Blanc.
Sure.
Any comments from traffic council members on TC 2225? Seeing none, I will make a motion to NAN. Oh, I do see Councilor Downs. So we're going to just go ahead with the vote on this item. And I will be calling the roll. So starting with, this is a motion to NAN the item. Captain Devine.
Aye.
Mr. Codd.
Aye.
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
And I vote aye as well, David Koses. So that's a 4-0.
And I will
vote.
abstain.
Okay, and Councilor Downs abstains. Okay, so we are taking no action on this item. Nothing is going to be changing, but the item could be redocketed again at any time. And now we're ready to move on to our next item. So our next item is TC 2725. Yes, this is Madison Rosso and Tyler Bordeaux of 116 Albert Road, requesting a change to the parking regulations on Albert Road and Roberta Road, potentially to include resident-only parking. So we're going to run through the presentation, then I'm going to open it up for public comment. So this is the location of Albert Road and Roberta Road off of Lexington Street in Auburndale. It's two cul-de-sacs connected by Roberta Road. We've heard over the years, Traffic Council has had items docketed from Albert Road and Roberta Road, and I just wanted to run through the history of the items over the past couple of years. Back in 2019, On February 28th, 2019, we heard an item that was docketed for Roberta Road. This is a view of Roberta Road, and this is a image from that meeting. It's a 27 or 28 foot wide street. It's a short street connecting, Lexington Street with Albert Road. So back at the meeting in 2019, this was the data that was presented. At that time, there were no parking restrictions on either side of that street. I did a couple parking observations back then, and we saw either 0 or 1 car parked on the street. Utility poles on the north and west side, there were no fire hydrants that we saw at the time. So at that meeting, the vote from Traffic Council was to hold the item as a trial and to install 2-hour limit signs, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m., except Saturday, Sundays, and holidays. So that was the trial that was held back in 2019 in February. And during the trial, we collected more data. After the signs were posted, we still saw, this was in November and December of 2019, we still saw between 0 and 1 vehicle parked on the street. And then this item was heard again on December 19th. And at that meeting, Traffic Council voted to make the trial permanent. So we voted to install the 2-hour limit signs, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. on, that was on Roberta Road, actually. So we also heard an item, this was almost 10 years ago in June of 2016 for Albert Road. And this is, the next couple slides were exactly what was presented back in 2016. So Albert Road is a public way. There's 2 cul-de-sacs. It's 28 feet wide, and then of course it widens out at the cul-de-sacs. It's over 1,000 feet wide. And for that item, it was really docketed to focus on the cul-de-sac on the southerly end. So that's what we focused on back in 2016. We did 4 observations for that meeting, and we saw either 0 or 1 vehicle parked there at the time. There's no restrictions. There were no restrictions back in 2016 on either side of Albert Road. Utility poles and hydrants are both on the north side. So the action that was taken back in 2016 was to install in a very small area, no parking signs, just at the end of the cul-de-sac. So I'll go back to the first slide. This is, and I hope you can see my cursor. So we were focusing on this cul-de-sac right here, where there's access into a development right down here, right? So we do have condos on the other side of Lexington Street, and we have townhouses in this area off of Lexington Street. So we focused on this cul-de-sac at that meeting back in 2016. And so that action that was taken was to install the no parking signs just at the end of the cul-de-sac. You can sort of see these signs here. And you can see that there's sort of an open gate and then the townhouses on the other side of Albert Road. So that is the only action that was taken as a result of this item back in 2016. No other changes were made to Albert Road at the time. Okay, so now Albert Road and Roberta Road have been docketed again in 2025. And so here are the slides from this year. So this is Roberta Road, looking toward Lexington Street, that short street right there. Again, it's still 28 feet wide, and we now have these 2-hour restrictions posted on either side of Roberta Road. Here's Albert Road. This is looking northeast from Roberta Road. There's a lot of construction that's happening on the street. A couple houses have been knocked down or are being reconstructed along the street. This is looking to the north. It's a 28-foot wide street, and there's no parking restriction on either side or around the cul-de-sac. This is a view looking in the other direction toward the southwest. also 28 feet wide on that half of the street. And no parking restriction on either side except for right at the very end, as we had discussed from 2016. This is the dead end. And you can see that short area with the no parking just right at the end. Right down there, the two signs that are posted. So I did do some new data collection for this item. This is the data that I collected in August and in September for Roberta Road. Again, this is the street that has a 2-hour limit posted on that short stretch. I tried to drive by and collect the data at different times, different days of the week, including a Sunday. And every time that I was there, and of course this is only these 10 observations, I only saw between 0 and 1 vehicle parked on Roberta Road. And then here's the data that was collected for Albert Road. Oh, I forgot to say, I also measured out how many spaces there were in general on Roberta Road, and there's approximately 8 spaces. That's sort of measuring it out at 19 or 20 feet, but not, counting driveways or, places where, you can't park within 20 feet of a corner or, near a fire hydrant, etc. So 8 vehicles should be able to park on Roberta Road. And then for Albert Road, 50 cars could park on Albert Road. And that's, again, not, staying outside of 5 feet from driveways, beyond 10 feet of fire hydrants, etc. So there's a lot of cars that could park on Albert Road. And the times that I was there, I counted all the vehicles on either side. It was pretty evenly split on both sides and on actually both cul-de-sacs also. Every time I was there, I saw a maximum of 16 vehicles parked out of 50 possible cars that could fit on the street. I went on Sunday afternoon, I only saw 4 vehicles on the whole street. A lot of these vehicles were construction vehicles. There was a lot of different kinds of construction happening in August and in September when I was there. Also landscaper vehicles. So it was a combination of construction vehicles, landscaper vehicles, and residents of the street and other residents, other members of the public. So to me, it seemed like a pretty typical street. Many streets throughout the city are more heavily parked up for residents and non-residents, all kinds of reasons throughout the city. And so the recommendation here is to deny the request, not to make any changes to the parking regulations on this public street, Albert Road, which is paid for and maintained by everybody who lives in the city. So that is the recommendation, to deny this request. We do have an appeals process. If this item does end up getting denied, we do have an appeals process. An appeal can be filed within the next 20 days in the clerk's office. And if an appeal is filed, if we do vote to deny this request, this item still lives. It gets transferred to the Public Safety and Transportation Committee, who will take up the item. Everybody will be notified again, and it would be up to City Council to make a final decision on this request. So I'm going to leave it there. I'm going to open it up now to public comment, and I'm just going to call your name, and then you could unmute. The first name I see is Tyler. You're Tyler Bordeaux, right?
Yes, David, that's me. Thank you. One thing I just want to point out, I did prepare a statement that I'd like to read to everyone, but if you could flip to the data from Albert Road, and while it is pretty compelling, the data, just one thing I'd like to point out, and while that's pretty compelling and obviously it's evident that it's larger than what we're experiencing on Roberta Road at times, I do want to point out that the latest point in the day that this data was collected was at 2:45 p.m. That's before a lot of non-residents who do park there get home from work or, finish what they're doing for the day. The latest point in this data collection was 2:45 p.m. After hours, after the workday, it gets heavily congested in the area. But nonetheless, good evening, members of the Newton Traffic Council, my many neighbors on Albert and Roberta Roads who joined the call, and fellow citizens of Newton. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Tyler Bordeaux, and I'm here this evening representing my neighbors on both Albert Road and Roberta Road. And I'm here to ask for something simple, reasonable, and necessary: resident-only parking for our neighborhood. This is about safety, it's about access, and it's about preserving our neighborhood. Albert Road is a quiet residential cul-de-sac on both ends. Our homes are modest, our yards are small, but what we value most is the safety and closeness of our neighborhood. That's all been slowly eroding because of parking. Today, our small street is overwhelmed by non-resident vehicles. Cars park on both sides of the road, day and night. Driveways are blocked, fire hydrants are obstructed, and emergency access is compromised. And yeah, David, those bollards, those get removed sometimes. I've seen it happen. I provided photos as well. Emergency vehicles can't pass freely. And let's be clear, that puts lives at risk. We've had to document cases, photos, reports, complaints. This is not an isolated issue. This is a chronic safety concern, and it's only getting worse. In addition, we are now an unofficial drop-off zone for Burr Elementary School. One end of Albert Road connects directly to the school via a walking path. Burr has encouraged families to use our street as an alternative drop-off area, likely to reduce congestion on Pine Street. We understand their intent, but the result is that our small street has become a traffic funnel. And now, with the newly renovated athletic fields at the Burr School, we have already seen and expect a surge of families, cars, and sports traffic. Albert and Roberta will be the closest, most convenient parking for weekend games and practices. Without action, this becomes a neighborhood parking lot, not a neighborhood. We don't want to push others out. We simply want to protect the livability of our street. Non-residents have other options. Lexington Street has street parking. Burr School has its own lots. Nearby apartment complexes offer parking to their tenants at a fee, though many still choose to park on our street. Our neighborhood should not be the solution to others' parking costs or overflow. So here's what we're asking for. We respectfully request that Albert Road and Roberta Road be designated resident-only parking zones. We're not demanding, we're asking for collaboration and action, because as David had mentioned, this issue has persisted for over 10 years. In closing, we love Newton. We value this community and what it stands for: safety, respect, and thoughtful planning. We're asking for your support to preserve those very values on Albert and Roberta Roads. Let's make this a safe, resident-focused street again. Let's keep it accessible for the people who actually live here, for the kids who play in the streets, and all the families who will choose this neighborhood for years to come. Thank you for your time, your consideration, and for the work you do to make Newton better for all of us. I respectfully urge you to vote in favor of this request. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Bordeaux, and we'll move on to Latterman. If you could unmute and just please say your name, or I'm sorry, your full name and your address or street for the
Sure.
record.
My name is Ellen Laderman, and I'm at 85 Albert Road, which is it's the first house as you turn off of Roberta on the right-hand side, going towards the Burr School. I really want to say thank you for all the data that you've gathered and all the careful discussion that has taken place. It shows a lot of effort. The thing I wanted to say is that, and I believe it's from people parking from the apartment complex across Lexington, frequently, and this has been a problem for multiple years, frequently when there is a snow plowing, there are cars that are parked at the corner on that street between where Roberta Road starts and my house, and they do not get off the street for the plows. And when that happens, my driveway gets like totally crapped up. And pardon the language. It's been a problem for years, and I just would like people to get off the street for the snow times. I'd prefer that people didn't park there at all from the complex, but at least when it's snowing, get off that place so that my driveway does not get a whole bunch of snow plowed into it.
Thank you for that comment.
Thank you.
We'll move on to Kamai, Lexington.
Yes, my name is Kamei Missoula. I live at the corner of Lexington and Roberta. My driveway is located right in the turn into Roberta, which ideally, like you stated, you're supposed to allow for 20 feet within that stop sign. I assure you that we do appreciate the data that you gathered and you took the time. But as noted, that data doesn't fully represent what we are seeing on a day-to-day basis. Also, the times are a little more restrictive. But I should also note, I was a little set back when you said 50 people could fit in a residence where there's not 50 homes. I think that would be obtuse to the reason why people purchase homes in that area. Also, if you put 8 to 9 cars on Roberta, where my driveway is located with my 2 children and my cars, I would not be able to pull in, as I'm numerously often jammed to a tight turn. So when you put a car on both sides of the road to turn into my driveway, I'm now having to make a 3-point turn. I will also note the safety of my children going to school, crossing the street. That then continues to the safety of our neighborhood. I think if you would check in with the police department, you will see an upsurge of car break-ins. I think throughout Newton, I would be interested to see what that is specifically to our street. I think we've frequently been targeted due to the size of our small neighborhood. And then when you allow certain people to have continuously access there, it allows to see kind of the comings and goings and the safety that we seem to have comfort in. Also, you said that the 2-hour limits, I can assure you that 2-hour limit is never adhered to. I have had cars parked directly in front of my home. I've had cars parked at the end of my driveway for days. There is one family that I know lives in the units across the street on Lexington, as noted, has their own parking that they can pay for, as well as street side parking. They have 2 resident parkings. I mean, they have 2 cars that they park on our street. Also, they park very well close to the end of my driveway. So also note the litter, the alcohol, the trash that ends up on our street right in front of my home that comes out of these cars. The snow plowing she's mentioned, the trash pickup has been jammed. And I think you can hear in my voice the passion behind the intolerance at this point of allowing other non-residents to park continuously there. So I was actually set back by that fact that it was so quickly denied, that you already said that it would be denied, instead of really seeing the issue at hand. So I really do hope that you're hearing us and seeing the concerns on numerous levels of safety, space, capacity, and then just neighborhood respect. Thank you.
Thank you for that comment. We'll move on to Daniel Cohen.
Hi, I'm Daniel Cohen. I'm at 80 Albert Road, which is right where Roberta Road intersects with Albert Road. And I guess my opinion is a little different from my neighbors who have spoken already. I think things are basically okay on the street, and I'm wary of resident parking restrictions that might have to get would become more inconvenient to have guests and visitors. So I mean, I think that I would rather kind of keep things as they are. I recognize there may be additional parking because of the Burr Field, but it doesn't seem like it's happened yet. So I might be open to being in favor of some parking restrictions in the future, but I haven't noticed any problems related to Burr Field. So that's where my position is, that we should not change the parking restrictions at this time.
Thank you very much, Mr. Cohen. Kari Brayton.
Hi there. My name is Kari Broughton. I live at 115 Albert Road, directly across from Tyler, who brought this complaint. I am at the very south end of the cul-de-sac. I have lived in that home since 2013 and was a part of the initial efforts to get the no parking sign at the end of the cul-de-sac in 2016. What we have observed is that specifically the condos directly behind us use our cul-de-sac as their personal parking lot. They have their own parking spots, and yet the end of the cul-de-sac is continuously clogged with other vehicles. As Tyler mentioned, the observations were not done later in the evening, and that is when people come home and park their cars at the end of the street. My house has a single driveway with 2-car back-to-back, front-to-back parking. My husband and I are both physicians who are sometimes on call and have to leave at times when the other person is not able to move their car. And so for us, it's very important to be able to park one of our vehicles in front of our home so that we can leave in the event of a medical emergency. Because of the number of vehicles that are parking from the street behind, there's often no parking directly in front of my home. And I don't feel that it should be appropriate for me to have to park halfway down the street in order to access my own home. That is what I'd like to say.
Thank you very much for that comment. The last hand I see right now is, it says Sheila.
Hi, this is Sheila Marinucci. I own the property at 12 Roberta Road. I echo everyone but Daniel Cohen's thoughts. This has been going on for many, many more than 10 years. And as one example, there's a gentleman who parks at least 3 of his vehicles there. I believe he's a resident at the apartments, but can't park his trailer or his van or his work SUV there because either it costs him too much or he's not allowed to. So he does the shifting of car management on Roberta Road. I know that you've done a lot of due diligence to try to see the parking and what's happening at different times, but as others have already said, they ignore the signs, they park there all the time, they don't mind emptying their ashtrays, blocking the driveways, and sometimes lingering into the night. And I think that if they were homeowners, they wouldn't want that either. I fear that a lot of it is from the rental properties across the way. And as you can see, there are quite a few of them. And when originally built, I don't think they thought their folks would have multiple cars for each unit. And now they're trying to get more rental income for those parking spots. And so it's much easier to go park at Roberta and Albert. Thank you.
Thank you. Gareth Higgins.
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, I live at 91 Albert Road, and I just wanted to follow up on what Tyler said. He really hit the nail on the head that the parking issue on Albert Road and Roberta, it's really a quality of life issue at this point where we have the streets being clogged up, especially overnight when people get back home from work, getting kids dropped off for Burr School and then the athletic fields. It just feels like the street is eroding because of all the traffic. And also, there are a lot of kids that live on the street that walk to school or ride their bikes on the street. And with all the additional traffic, I wouldn't feel great about sending my daughter out on her bike to go to school just because of what's happening on the street. So again, I just want to thank Tyler for preparing that statement. I think he really nailed what we're going for. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public wish to speak on this item? Let me just take a quick look. I see someone called Albert Road resident. If you could unmute and just say your name or address.
Sorry about that. I was having a hard time.
Yep.
My name is Kirsten Rasso and I live at 104 Albert Road, and I've actually lived here for about 30 years. And I mean, the traffic and the parking on the street is just getting progressively worse each year. And I too agree with Tyler. We have dealt with issues of people parking down at this end and using, as our neighbor has said, the end of the street as a parking lot. We've had them have parties, get-togethers, and we've had to go up to City Hall and ask for something to be done with the parking. So this isn't the first time that we've come forward. It is the first time we've been in front of the traffic council. One of the other issues is I noticed the apartments across the street have a lot of parking. So it's not that they don't have parking, it's that they aren't wanting to pay for the extra parking and using our road as their free parking and yet causing a lot of problems for our residents. And it also is causing problems for all the young families that are moving in, which we're starting to see the more and more that the families are getting younger, which is what we want because this is what building neighborhoods is about. But the safety is getting worse. I mean, my kids used to play in the street, ride their bikes, learn how to ride their bikes, do all that stuff. And they can't do that anymore, the way people are coming down to park and everything else. So I agree with Tyler. I agree with the 99% of our neighbors. And thank you for hearing us out.
Thank you very much. And Tyler, do you want to have the last word?
I wouldn't mind adding in closing, David, and to the council. Again, thank you so much for your time and for hearing us out in this. I've watched a lot of the traffic councils as they're posted, and I think that it's quite evident the amount of turnout and participation on this topic is it goes up there. A lot of people came out tonight. Thank you to all the residents and all of the everyone on Albert and Roberta roads. And traffic council, I truly urge you to vote in favor of resident only parking. Thank you.
Thank you, Tyler. So now we're going to close the public comment period. Thank you all very much for participating. We're going to move the discussion to the members of traffic council or city councilors. Mitch, do you want to start us off?
Yeah, I may have some other comments, but so I guess one question is, I guess the cul-de-sac on the south side, is that the lower part? Just confirm that that's the one I'm talking about, right?
Yes.
Okay, so the comments that have come up seem to indicate that there's some, I don't know what they are, but they're not on the street, these 4 or 5 houses that are off that cul-de-sac that had the pilings in the middle that one of the speakers said gets removed. Is that address a different address? What is that address?
So you're talking about, can you see my cursor, Mitch?
Yeah, what is that?
So this is the cul-de-sac. This is the end of Albert Road. Here's the townhouses that are, I'm not even sure, it might be Lexington Street. I'm not sure actually the street name. I can see the addresses here.
Yes, those are Lexington Street.
Okay, thank you.
What is it again?
So these townhouses have Lexington Street addresses.
Right. Okay.
And it is like, it's very, you can see in the photo, it's very close to, live in one of these and then park somewhere on Albert Road, especially, around the cul-de-sac.
Okay. So David, so the comments that have been raised in part relate to the time of day that some of these, the more recent ones, I guess in August, and then one in September, and they all finished up, mid-afternoon. So I guess my question is maybe Tyler, maybe somebody else, what actually happens and what hours are affected and what is the observation where the number of cars dramatically increases? I mean, I have a sense it's more, I just don't understand if it's on Roberta Road or it's on Albert Road or it's at the cul-de-sacs or where is it?
And quite frankly, Mitch,
Tyler, why don't you go ahead and answer that?
Thank you, David. Quite frankly, Mitch, it's on both. So Roberta Road, as you can see indicated on this map here, Roberta Road experiences an influx of parking, as alluded to by many citizens, from those units that are 155, 163, 145, the apartment buildings across the street. I know that the parking there, it's a you have to pay. It's not just included. So a lot of folks have come over and began utilizing parking on those streets. And also something that was mentioned earlier, they definitely do not abide by those 2-hour parking regulations, but it's also not enforced, David. We've many people have called, it's rarely never enforced. So that's another instance on that. But as I was saying, Mitch, that area, so Roberta's really experiences an influx of people parking from the apartment buildings across the street, and the lower cul-de-sac area, it experiences a large amount of parking from the folks that are in those townhouses. In addition to, it's not entirely pictured, but there's actually a walkway that extends right behind 116 that goes to the brand new renovated fields at the Burr School. Thank you again, Town of Newton, for those amazing fields that you implemented. But that's another reason where the fences have yet to come down, but folks are already out there walking, and people are parking there later in the day quite often. But really, it's once that crowd comes back, wraps up either school or work at, as we mentioned the data, I think the latest point was like 2:45 p.m. Once it hits 5 o'clock and people are getting home for the day, it becomes a parking lot. And like you mentioned, 28 feet on each side, it is a safety concern because there's often parking on both sides, to the point where I don't think an emergency vehicle could even get through and utilize that those bollard lifters to Lexington if needed. It becomes that congested.
So,
Thank you.
so
Go
I,
ahead, Mitch.
I just want to follow up. So 28 feet is the width, and I think, David, you've indicated that that's average or better than many streets in Newton. Is that accurate?
It's significantly wider than most streets in Newton.
Okay. So I understand there's a data question here, and let's say hypothetically, I mean, there's no evidence we have directly, but from testimony, there's a lot of cars that move in the late afternoon and early evening. I guess my question, and this is more maybe to the traffic council, is why wouldn't we, before we get to a resident parking question or even a vote, why wouldn't we look at some one-side restrictions? And, and that doesn't necessarily deal with the Roberta Road situation where the 2-hour maybe is not enforced. But I guess I'm just concerned about enforcement of the residency restriction, and I guess I would ask Captain Devine how you feel about that. I mean, that's a significant kind of enforcement as well. So I mean, I guess I'm a little bit concerned about getting to a vote even on that when there might be other solutions that could be tried before that.
Even resident only overnight parking would be an addition and address. No overnight parking. Residents, yes, residents can park on the street overnight if they need, but non-residents, no parking overnight.
Thank you, Donald.
Thank you.
Captain Devine, did you have any comments at this point, or should we move on to Councilor Downs?
No, we can move on to Councilor Downs.
Councilor Downs?
Thank you, Chair. Can you remind me one more time about the time limits that are currently up on Albert and Roberta Road?
Albert Road has no time limits on either side.
It's just 2 hours or not
so
at all?
Roberta Road, just this little block of Roberta Road has the 2-hour limits on both sides.
Mm-hmm. And Albert has none?
Has none.
Okay. So it seems to me that, first of all, we should probably do some time limits on Albert Road, particularly for the afternoon, and then do some directed enforcement there so that people get a chance to access their driveways. I think we have to share our parking, particularly when it comes to public assets like Burr Park, but I don't think we have to give parking away for free. And if people don't like the price of the parking where they're living, we shouldn't be offering a free alternative to that. So I'd be willing to talk about a way to put some time limits on Albert Road to help with some of this all day, all night parking here.
Thank you, Councilor Downs. Other thoughts from traffic council members? I guess I'll share. So in terms of resident only parking, which was the request here, I would share that, in many years, traffic council has never approved a resident only, any new resident only parking regulations on individual streets like this. Actually, were prohibited in the ordinance without trying something else first. But throughout the city, we do have requests for many streets all across the city to implement resident only parking for only the residents that live on those particular streets. We never have done that unless it's part of an overall bigger parking plan that might be, near a Green Line station or near a village center in some sort of way that shares the streets still. Because again, I see this as public street and not private property. These are public streets. And I just feel like it doesn't seem that different to me than so many streets all over the city. I think of Hall Street. It's end to end students, Newton North students. There's not even any chance for residents to park on Hall Street. Even in my neighborhood in Newton Corner, the streets are shared by Honda Village employees and Lincoln Elliott staff and, parents, and Horace Mann staff are there now. And just so many streets everywhere, Chase Street, I think of streets near Newton Center that people are parking on to go for, to do some business in Newton Center, or any street that's near a village center or a field or a park. It's the same thing throughout the city, even on the agenda tonight, actually, right? We have Islington later on tonight, near a soccer field, near a vet hospital, near, other businesses. We have Beaumont Avenue on the agenda tonight at this one meeting. Parking is shared. It's near Newton North High School. So I don't know. I see that there are cars that are parking on the streets. The times that I went, just a lot of construction vehicles. So I don't know how that would work to continue having construction, vehicles when you have resident only parking on a street. I'm not sure that the residents would even want to have some kind of time limit that would affect them as well. When, there are places to park on the street. I just feel like our main responsibility in traffic council is not to vote on, how many parking spaces are associated with different developments nearby, but it's really, we should be focusing on, can emergency vehicles get through? Is there access for residents who live on the street to be able to park on their street for themselves, for their visitors? It doesn't necessarily need to be right in front of your house. It could be a house up or, 2 houses up. I just feel like that is the baseline of hundreds of streets all throughout Newton right now. So those are my thoughts, but let's move on to Captain Devine.
Dave, I agree with your sentiment, what you're saying. I'm afraid if you establish it here, then how many other streets will follow suit in the same type of issues we'll be dealing with over and over again. So I agree with your sentiments.
Thank you, Captain Devine. Councilor Block.
Well, thank you, David, for summary, and I appreciate you're giving me an education as well as a chance to comment on this. It was something that Councilor Downs said that I wanted just to pursue a little bit. Because I think the way I think about this is what she was describing, but let me just sort of spit this out. The residents across the street, it's my understanding that one parking space is built into the rent, but a second parking space will result in an additional charge. Maybe that's true for both parking spaces, but I think they have 2 parking spaces per unit. And we as a city council, we as a city, we've encouraged this kind of pricing for parking, so that if someone doesn't need a second parking space, they're not in effect charged for it indirectly through their rent. And perhaps even people are encouraged to not have 2 cars. I don't know if that really works, but I think that's been talked about a lot in city council regarding parking. So where I see this tension is that on the other side of Lexington, there are a lot of people who live there. And again, if my understanding is right, they have one parking space that comes with their built-in rent. But if they have a second vehicle and they'd rather not pay any more, they'll migrate across the street for what we'll just euphemistically call free parking. This tension strikes me as not sustainable. If parking on one side of Lexington, there's a charge for it, and parking on the other side of Lexington, there is no charge, we're going to continue to see this pattern. I'm not saying I have an answer to it, but I guess theoretically there should be some comparable parking charge on both sides of Lexington, not just on one side. And I sit here wondering, is there a way to do that? And if there are similar circumstances elsewhere in Newton, I don't know why we wouldn't try and apply the same principle there as well. So I know that's a little different from having a resident-only parking zone here. I'm not necessarily arguing in favor of that, but there's a policy problem here. At least that's how I'm seeing this. And if I'm mistaken, please tell me. If there are some facts or factors that affect this, please let me know. So I think we've got ourselves a little bit of a quandary. That's sort of how I see it. And please tell me if you disagree with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Blanc. I guess one thing I would add on to what you said, Councilor Blanc, is, the one thing that is working in our favor right now, for now, is that we still have the overnight winter parking ban in place, right? So that, since we have the winter overnight parking ban in place, anyone who has 2 cars and 1 parking space has to figure out what to do with that second car in the winter, right? I am concerned that if that is voted out in November, and people can have 2, 3, 4, 5 cars and just park on the residential streets all over the city. So right now we don't have that. I don't know what Albert Road and similar roads would look like without an overnight winter parking ban in place, but that's something for us to think about. But right now it is in place. The data is what the data is as I collected it, and I did collect it on a Sunday specifically to see what it might look like without all the construction vehicles and landscaping vehicles. So I don't know that answered your question, but I don't know if I could answer your question, but I sort of added on to it. go on to see if there's any other members of traffic council who have comments on this. Any other thoughts? We have a request for resident-only parking. Mitch.
So, I appreciate everybody's comment. And Councilor Block, I think you raised a good question about the migration of parking from these kind of projects or developments and insufficient parking, and people park on areas where it's more available and it's free. I just am in agreement with David Kozis with regard to entertaining resident parking in this limited area. And I guess I feel the first item is to make this a safe street. Both Roberta and Albert. And I guess I would think that a restriction on one side of perhaps both streets may be the way to go. I don't know how to deal with the 2-hour parking on Roberta. It seemed to me, yeah, that's probably accurate from the residents' opinion that it's a tough thing to enforce, and you're probably not going to enforce it at night. Goes till 10 p.m. So inherently there's something missing on that approach. But certainly if you had one side that was not available to parking, that would be easy to enforce. That would be safer. The downside of doing that would be more cars on the other side. And again, as we find on many of the streets, forcing residents on the side where they can't park, less convenient for them. But it becomes easier for construction vehicles to come in. Clearly enforcement is part of that solution. But the resident part of it, as David indicated, is usually tied to a larger issue. In fact, sometimes where we want to provide parking for areas that there is no parking, and we want to expand it into areas nearby where it's feasible. So, I'd be interested in more information, but at this point, I don't feel we should go to resident parking based on what's in front of us.
Thank you, Mitch. So this is when we have a street that's 23 feet or 22 feet, that's when we usually, and it says my internet connection is unstable, so just let me know if I go out. So streets that are even 24-foot wide streets, that's when we sort of debate whether we should restrict parking on one side. A street that's 28 feet wide really is wide enough to allow parking on both sides. The vehicles can get through. I mean, you see this is a beautiful street, right? To me, I wish I could live on this street. It's a gorgeous street. We don't have any signs that are posted right now. So there's the aesthetics of posting signs. There's all the hassle that would come with resident only parking, the signs, the buying, the permits, the enforcement, all that. I'm just saying what I'm seeing right now, it seems like it works well enough to have some cars sprinkled on either side, sort of slows the traffic down as the vehicles are able to get through, people can find a parking space. I don't know what's going to happen next year, if we might need to reconsider this down the road. But from where I'm sitting right now, I just, I don't know that we would be making anything better by posting signs or restricting parking on one side and forcing all the cars onto one side. We saw 16 vehicles a maximum when I was, just doing a count. That would, they would all be on one side of the street now. I don't see that that's an advantage. But that's my opinion. I'm interested to know what other members of traffic council think.
Hi, David. I'm sorry to interrupt. Can you hear me?
Who is this?
I'm sorry. My name is Mike Lantanos. I live at 95 Albert Road. I'm not too tech savvy, so I had a hard time with the hand raising thing to speak my piece. May
Okay,
I
so
say a
you
couple
haven't
words?
spoken yet before, so please go ahead. We have
Uh,
closed
my-
the public comment period, but you did not speak yet, so I'd like to
My
call on you.
apologies. I'm not too tech savvy. As far as making half of the street parking, the kids are still gonna ride their bikes and walk on that side of the street. So safety wise, I don't really think that's gonna. I mean, it might help one side of the street, but that would be the worst thing you could probably do. The next thing I didn't hear addressed was the people that drive down the street doing like 30, 40 miles an hour. Maybe I missed that, and that's no one that lives here. I grew up, I'm from Newton. My grandparents lived here. I grew up playing on this street, and you can't play on these streets no more. And I think what it basically comes down to, David, is, we pay a lot of money to live here, a lot of money in taxes, and I think if we want to roll up and park in front of our house, we should be able to do that. And I think that's the big thing. Just with two people that don't live on the street, you have like 5 to 6 cars. That's just two people. And I really hate to like cause problems or anything like that, but we pay a lot of money to live here, and especially down the end of the street, the young woman, she can never park in front of her house, never. And it's not fair when some of these people can pay the $25 a month to get an extra spot. I do appreciate everything that the city council does and everything that you do. All I could do is just ask that you put yourself to live at a house where you can never park in front of it. It's frustrating. And thank you, and my apologies for interrupting. My apologies.
No, it's no problem. Thank you for being able to comment. Councilor Downs.
Thank you. Well, as someone who can never park in front of my house for fear of having it totaled.
Yeah.
I know that's not, and who pays a lot of money to live here. And it's not a guarantee just because you live in Newton, and you're on a nice, quiet, dead-end street. I agree with you, David. I think the petition as it's in front of us to have resident-only parking here is not warranted at this time, and I definitely would move to something else first, and I think we are ready to vote.
Okay. Would you like to make a motion, or should we first see if there's any other comments from? Let me just ask the members of traffic council. I do see 2 hands up from the residents. Do we, even though we closed the public comment period, do we want to open it back up for these 2 comments? Members of traffic council, what do you think? Is that a yes for Mitch? Okay, so we have 2 last comments from Tyler and from Landeman. So Tyler, please unmute.
Hey, David, thank you. And great conversation from everyone in the meeting tonight. I think everyone made a lot of good points. And David, I see your side in some of the points that you've made as well. One thing that you said really stuck with me, and it was, it's not traffic council's job to count the number of parking spots on a street and make a judgment necessarily, right? I think that what the job of the traffic council is to listen to the residents of Newton and take their best interests to heart. I'll point out one more time, David, you did great data. It was not once, 2:45 p.m. was the latest data collection. I know you mentioned a Sunday. It was the first Patriots game of the year. Half of Newton was at Buffs or the Cherry Tree. It's true. Like, I think it's quite evident with the turnout on this meeting and the commentary from everyone on our street. Maybe it's not just resident only. I think no overnight non-resident parking would work as well. Only allow residents to park overnight. I think that would solve a lot of the issues, and I think it would actually address many of the concerns that the traffic council brought up as well. Thank you. And I urge y'all, the one last thing is you said that it's not something we typically do. I think we all know that, nothing extraordinary happens when we all just do what's typically done. We have a chance to make a lasting impact and change the lives of residents of Newton who value the work that y'all do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Tyler. I mean, one thing I would just respond to, our little division of public works, we also handle parking ticket hearings and parking ticket appeals. And, the idea of having a street that has signs that say no non-resident overnight parking on this street is not something we have on any street anywhere in Newton. I don't know, Captain Devine, I just see that would be nearly impossible to enforce for the police officers who work at night to even know whose car is a resident and who's a visitor of a resident. And, I see all sorts of enforcement problems. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. I do see, Ned, you have your hand up.
It's just impossible to
Oh.
determine that. And there's
Yeah.
hundreds of streets, and I don't even think it's legal to just make it certain streets that's why we overnight park, and that overnight park could be banned pretty soon too, come November.
Mm-hmm. You mean overnight parking could be allowed in the winter? Yeah, right. Ned. Oh, I'm sorry, we were in the middle. I'm sorry. Let me just finish up, and maybe Tyler, you could take your hand down. And I did want to call Landon as the last comment from a resident of the street.
Thank you. You keep talking about this overnight parking ban. It's not enforced. There is regularly, and it has been for years, people have parked between my driveway at 85 Albert Road and Roberta Road. And it is a mess, and it is really difficult when snowplows come along. It's horrible. And you keep saying there's an overnight parking ban in the winter. It doesn't get enforced. So I'm not asking for anything new. I'm asking for some enforcement.
Right, and I think the only reason I'm bringing it up is because it's on the ballot in
Understood.
November, right? To remove that so that there would be no reason to enforce it if it's not even on the books anymore. That's why I brought it up.
Understood.
Oh yes, thank you. Councilor Block.
I saw that. Let me defer to Ned Cott. I think he
Okay,
was
yeah.
before me, and
Yes.
somehow. So you go ahead, Ned. I'm
Okay, thank you,
interested in
Ned.
what you have to say on this.
Yeah, me too. I'm very interested. Go ahead, Ned.
Yeah, I just wanted to sort of speak to, the really the purpose of the traffic council and what we try to achieve here, generally speaking, which is to we absolutely want to give very high credence and priority to needs, concerns, desires of immediate abutters in establishing traffic and parking regulations. But we also, need to exercise our professional judgment first and foremost relative to safety and also balancing sort of needs of abutters with overall public goods and really try to think about how we treat all the residents of Newton and really trying to be sort of as fair and equitable as possible.
Thank you very much. Councilor Block, did you want to speak now or go to Captain Devine?
Well, no, I just make a comment that I'm wondering if a little more data collected late in the day, 5 p.m. or 6 p.m., when the residents are saying this problem is acute, I'm not exactly sure what that information, how that information would shape a decision and what that would mean. But it would be interesting to at least establish whether you do it, David, or somebody else does it. You want me to drive by there at certain times? I'll be glad to.
Maybe because I kind of feel like a loser for driving around during the big day.
Well, you do plenty of that. I do, but this is Ward 4, and I know exactly what these streets are like, and it would be interesting to have a little more definitive data later in the day. Again, how that would shape the response, I'm not sure, but at least it might make everyone feel better that we're understanding the problem. So that's my comment. Thanks.
Yeah, we had only 4 observations from back in 2016, and that was pretty limited just to the cul-de-sac. So maybe that's out of date. I know Councilor Downs said that we're close to being able to vote, and please, I want to remind everybody, if we do have a vote to deny this request, it's not necessarily the end of the road. We do have the appeals process. If an appeal is filed, this item would be transferred to Public Safety and Transportation, and before that meeting, additional data could be collected to prepare for that meeting in the event that the residents feel strongly enough that they want to continue discussing at PS&T through the appeals process. Captain Devine.
Dave, 2 quick things regarding the residents. Overnight parking starts December 1st. If there is cars parked overnight, they can call Newton Police. We have a complaint hotline. If they call, I can tell you right now, we'll send an officer down that night. Second thing is, I don't think we need any more time or reconsideration. I think the core principle of it wouldn't change even if we do studies later in the evening. In my opinion, still would stay the same.
Right. So we have the December 1st beginning of overnight ban unless it changes in November, right? So it sort of remains to be seen. Mitch.
So I guess having heard everybody speak, I think we should probably try to get some more information. I think Councilor Block is right. It may not inform anything different, but I think it would be very helpful because we're relying on the neighbors, which is perfectly fine, but I think probably would make us feel a little bit more sure. And then if we hold this item, which is what I would recommend, when it gets re-advertised, I would re-advertise. That would include possible view for eliminating parking on one side. I don't know about both, but certainly on Albert and as a possibility. And then, because I guess what I felt was like the neighbors that spoke up were all sort of at the intersection of the 2 roads, maybe 2 or 3 houses down. And and the street certainly has more houses, and it would be important to know if a lot of neighbors really would object to one side only. But I would say, if one side only is something that people feel good about it, maybe that's a trial at the end of, we consider that as well. So anyway, my motion would be to hold.
Okay. So we have a motion that has been made to hold this item to collect more data. Before we vote on that, I want to see if there's other comments. My comment is that, I prefer to be able to vote today. We do have this appeals process in place. It might be beneficial to the residents to have this discussion in front of a different group of people, being the elected officials, the city council, the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. I don't know what their point of view might be. In my view, I've collected data several times, and other times that I've been on the street and also in the past. And I just I don't know that I would change my vote, but I'm only one vote in this group. So I think I'm going to vote against hold and make a motion to deny. But let's hear from Councillor Downs.
That was what I was going to suggest, and also suggest if there's a problem with speeding on the street, the last thing you want to do is restrict parking to one side. There also seems to be parking shortage in the area. So again, I don't know why we would restrict parking on one side. My inclination is to vote against hold and to support your motion to deny.
Thank you. Captain Devine.
Dave, I agree. We can't kick this can down the road anymore. I vote to not to hold and just to deny, like you suggested, and Councilor Downs supports.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments? Mitch, do you still want to move forward with the motion to hold?
No, I would like to withdraw that motion.
Okay. So I'll make a motion to deny this request. Again, it's clear, I've mentioned a couple times that we do have the appeals process. If the neighbors are strongly against this vote, sometime between now and the end of the day on October 1st, I would recommend that you contact the city clerk's office in City Hall, get the form. There's a specific form. It's actually on the city webpage, on the traffic council page under city council. That is a traffic council appeals petition form that can be printed out or gotten at the clerk's office. It needs to be filled out and returned to the clerk's office before October 1st. So any last comments on the motion to deny? All right, then I will call the roll, starting with Captain Devine on the motion to deny.
I vote aye to deny.
Right. Mr. Hogg,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
Councillor Downs,
Aye.
and Mr. Kosos, myself, I vote aye. So that is a 5-0 vote to deny this request. So thank you all for all of your comments. I'm not sure if this might be seeing you again at the Public Safety and Transportation Committee. So we're now going to move on to the next item. All right. The next item is TC 3925. This is David Kosos, Traffic Council Chair, on behalf of area neighbors, requesting to change the parking regulation on the east side of Beaumont Avenue between Prospect Park and Hull Street to no parking anytime to ensure access for buses, trash, recycling, and emergency vehicles. All right, so this is the one block that we're talking about. It's just south of Hull Street, next to Newton North High School. It's Beaumont, this one block with basically 4 houses abutting it. This is a view of Beaumont Avenue. It's 24 feet wide with the same parking restriction on either side. It's parking by Newtonville permit only, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. on school days. This is part of a large village parking plan, the Newtonville Parking District. Here's a view looking north from Prospect Park at 24 feet wide. You can again see the parking by Newtonville permit only sign is right there on school days 8 to 4. So what I understand is happening on this street is that there are Newton North High School students that don't live on the street that somehow have gotten Newtonville permits from resident. Maybe this is hearsay, but it could be the case that that students are parking every school day on the street that don't live on the street. I'm not sure how they're getting the permits, and it's only 24 feet wide. So it makes it difficult when cars are parked across from each other on a 24-foot wide street for buses to be able to get through and emergency vehicles. So the recommendation is simply on one side of the street to create a no parking this side, and no other changes on the whole street. This is the entire village parking district that has been developed over the years. And so this little arrow right there is just pointing to this one little block of Beaumont Avenue, which right now is purple. It's Newtonville permit parking 8 to 4, and it would be changed to no parking anytime. That way, you know, even if the students are continuing to somehow get these permits for, you know, that are given to the residents on this street, they at least would not be on either side of the street, and the emergency vehicles would be able to get through. So that is the recommendation for this item. And again, it could be appealed. So now I'm going to open it up to public comment. Would anyone like to make a comment on this item? I don't see any. Oh, I see one. Oh, Carmelita Hinton.
I have to get myself heard and seen.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Oh, can you hear me? Oh, yes.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yeah. I think this restriction that's proposed is right in front of, I live right on the corner, and I've witnessed, I just want to say that I support this change because I witnessed, not all year round, not every year, but when it happens, a bunch of high school students, they get visitors permits, and however long the street is, I don't know who they're visiting, but during school days, they park on both sides of Beaumont, leading up as close as possible to Hall Street to rush to school. Those permits, you can't question because somehow they got them. But then I had to help school buses back up. You know, that little corner is kind of hard to turn. There's parking all along, student parking all along Hall Street. So that corner is quite narrow when on Beaumont leading up to Hall Street, cars parked on both sides. I've garbage trucks on Fridays have had to back up. I've seen multiple school buses taking students, I don't know to where, but heading towards Hall Street and couldn't go through, and asking me, you know, as if I'm the one, because I was working on my yard, whether, you know, I'm parked, is my car there blocking them? I said, no, I don't park on the street. It's a lot of students somehow get the visitors parking, and they're not visiting anyone on our street. They're not certainly visiting me, but they are going to school. So some days are worse than others. Some days there's no problem. And I hope that everybody find their parking, and I'm very accommodating that way. But when it came to, I once had to help a school bus back up Beaumont Street because the lady driving the bus was so frustrated that she couldn't get through and didn't know what to do. So I had to go walk behind it and lead it back, make it tail go into Prospect, whatever, Prospect Park, is it? Yes. And then turn around and drive out Beaumont Street the other way. I don't know how she would have gotten to her destination. So that's why I think it's a good idea to at least some kind of restriction. So close to the corner, nothing is blocked, because there are not so many parked cars on either side of the street further away from that corner that I've seen, you know, if the parked cars are just right across each other, the street is hard to get through. But there are not that many usually in the street, so that, you know, a garbage truck can like kind of wind its way through between parked cars, because there's always some space on either side to let these things through. But when kids then set up right near the opening, near the mouth where Beaumont feed into Hall Street, then that's where the problem is. And since I live there, I'm at the brunt of this situation where I had to direct traffic. So that's the summertime. I'm out there a lot, so I get called upon. All right, so I've said enough, and I support this solution. I think it's a good solution. It doesn't deny a lot of people parking, but it's certainly, even if the students can continue to use their fake misused permits, at least buses and emergency vehicles and garbage sanitation trucks can go through. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Whittington. And I just wanted to say that I view this as quite different from the previous item. It's a much narrower street. It's so much more parked up. Whole Street, is end to end. There's buses, there's thousands of people, in this area. It's hard to make the turns here. And it's a small change that we're requesting, and we're still allowing parking on the entire rest of Beaumont Avenue, just not along this one small block. Yeah, so any other comments from the public? Any comment? Oh, it says Richard Gordon.
Hello, just a short comment. There are no complaints about making this change from residents because the two houses that would be affected, the ones that are facing that east side of the road, there are no visitor permits that are used by either. I mean, the house on the corner that Carmelita Hinton and I live in, or the house next door to us, there really is no issue. And as Karma pointed out, on the west side of the street, if the students walk another 50 feet or at most 100, 200 feet, they can park. It's just a question of convenience and saving 20 seconds. They park late, they're rushing to school. So I think it's a wise thing to do.
Thank you. It's a safety benefit. And, FYI, even if these two houses don't currently get visitor permits or resident stickers, even though it would be no parking anytime right in front, it's still part of the parking district, and you still would be eligible to get permits that say Beaumont Avenue and visitor permits. It's just that you would need to park either on the other side or further down. Okay, maybe that's clear, obvious. Any other comments? Okay. Any comments from the members of Traffic Council or any city councilor? And I do see we're joined by Councilor Getz from Ward 5. Councilor Downs.
I'm inclined at the danger of depriving Ms. Hinton of a very good job for which she's not paid. I would vote approval. I would move approval.
Okay. So we do have the draft TPR language that was sent out previously. This would be TPR 996. So the motion would be to approve the language for TC 3925 of TPR 996, which is reflected on slide 33. The language that would be in our traffic and parking regulations. It's just the specific language that would be removed and then re-added in order to create this no parking zone on the east side of Beaumont Avenue. So that's the motion. Any last comments before I call the roll? Okay, so I'm going to call first Captain Devine, and I would be approving the language of TPR 996. Captain Devine?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Okay. Mr. Fishman?
Aye.
Councilor Downs?
Aye.
and an aye from myself, David Kozos. So that is 5-0. Approve the language of TPR 996. We do have the appeals deadline between now and October 1st. So that means that this change cannot be made until after October 1st. So I don't expect that there's going to be an appeal on this item. So it's just that we need to wait until after October 1st, and then our crews would be able to replace the posted signs with these new no parking this side signs. Okay, so thank you all. We're going to move on to the next item. So our next item is TC 3525. This is Carrie Ranta of 194 Islington and Councillor Block requesting to restrict parking along either one side or both sides of the block of Islington Road between Commonwealth Avenue and Ryder Terrace. So again, a presentation, and then we'll open it up for comment. This is the section of Islington Road that we will be discussing a parking regulation, a new parking restriction on this section. This is Islington Road. It's the only way, the only access point to Islington Road is from Commonwealth Avenue. And here is a view that I took. This is looking north from Commonwealth Avenue. This is a construction area along the carriageway and Commonwealth Avenue itself. It seems to be 21 feet wide on this section. And then you go a little bit further up toward Ryder Terrace, and it widens out a little bit to 22 to 24 feet. It's not any wider than 24 feet. Here's a view a little bit further south, going down around the curve toward Commonwealth Avenue. Again, it's sort of between 22 and 24 feet wide. And getting even closer to Commonwealth Avenue, here's another view, still 22 to 24 feet wide. So I did a couple observations. I don't think that 28 foot wide is correct. That must be a mistake. Or maybe it becomes wider in another part of Islington Road, but the section that we're talking about is not 28 feet wide. It's 22 to 24 feet wide. When I was there, I only took a look. I mean, I've been there many times over the years, but the specific observations I took on these days, I saw between 0 and 3 cars parked on that one block. There's no restrictions really on the books right now on either side. The utility poles and the hydrants, it's important to note, are both on the east side of this block. It's important to know because we often prefer to post the signage on the utility poles so that we don't need to put in new poles in the grass or in the concrete. So I came up with 2 different options that I wanted to present and see what kind of feedback we get. The first option would be to restrict parking on the east side of this block and a little bit on the west side, closer down toward Commonwealth Avenue to sort of clear it out, near the intersection. So this is what option 1 would look like. We would have no parking on the east side going, starting at Commonwealth Avenue up around the curve, and then coming down on the west side, parking would be allowed until you get to a point where there's no parking from that point down to Commonwealth Avenue. Here's another view of what that would look like. Option 1, we would have no parking on the east side on the utility poles, right? And then partially restricted on the west side. So there would be a new sign that would be posted. There would be no parking here to corner. The parking would be allowed further up on the west side for the residents who live on that block, because that's very important to consider as well. So we have language for that option if we want to go with that option. And then we have, and with an appeals deadline, we have option 2 that would be the opposite. It would restrict parking on the west side, around the curve down the hill, and then partially restricted on the east side, which is kind of already is. So that's what this would look like if we're restricting parking on the west side. You know, no parking on that whole side up, you know, further up and around the bend. And we already actually have this sign posted on the east side that's no parking here to corner. It's not in our traffic and parking regulations. It's not in the books. We would want to definitely add it into the books. Now, I guess it wasn't in the books before because we had the carriageway right there and it didn't need to be in the books, but now it's enough of a distance of no parking to Commonwealth Avenue that we would need to add it into the official regulations. So here's another view of what that would look like. There would be no parking on the west side, coming around the bend down the hill, and then along a section, you know, on the east side. This is an important photo to show what that would look like, especially for this house. If we're going to be restricting parking on the west side, there's no utility poles on the west side. So that would mean posting new signs, you know, on the west side with new poles that don't exist. In the grass, there's no sidewalk right there. So I definitely wanted to highlight this particular slide for comments later. This sign is already there. Like I said before, we already have the no parking sign right there. It's just not in the books. And if we go with, you know, with this option, we would, you know, add that into our official regulations, into our official TPR traffic and parking regulations. And we have the language for that option as well. So those are the two options that I have. I wanted to open it up now to public comment to see what we hear from the residents. And the first hand that I see is Peter Goddard. If you could just say your address for the record.
Yes, good evening. My name is Peter Goddard, and I live at 6 Islington Road. I'm in year number 28, teaching in Newton North High School, and I'm also proud to be the co-chair of the Deacon Board at Myrtle Baptist Church. One of the things that I'd like to kind of talk about in terms of our particular address is that we've lost a lot of parking due to this new configuration. The carriage lane by our the carriage lane right outside our house is now going to be the pedestrian bike lane, which we're fine with in our driveway.
Mr. Goddard, can you say again, what is your address?
6 Islington Road.
So it is within this block.
Oh yeah, we're the corner.
Okay.
We're the one most
All right.
affected by anything we're talking about here.
Okay, sorry for interrupting. Please continue.
That's all right. It's all right. So the carriage lane by us, where we used to be able to have parking, has now been taken away for a bike and pedestrian lane, which is fine. The carriage lane on the other side, closer to Lions Field, has been reconfigured so that the baseball parking has turned into a bigger mess now, in terms of that. So, you know, part of what we are wanting for is for there to be no restrictions on parking, because then if we have anyone other than just the 2 cars that we have, my wife and me, then they have to park quite far away. I'm thinking of my elderly parents when they come and visit their grandchildren. I'm thinking of church members that we often come over who are often elderly to come into the house of the diaconate to be able to be served some things. We also are a social house. We have people over, and you know, we just feel that, you know, so much has been kind of taken here. Why take away the last kind of non-driveway parking that we have? It's an issue of fairness. None of the abutters of this are in support of this. Our neighbors up the street can park all they want in front of their house, and we now cannot. In terms of the 2, I would prefer parking on both sides. But in terms of the options, new curbs were put right in front of our house on Monday, which was a surprise to us. And so there's definitely already kind of de facto not going to be a lot of parking in front of my house in the first place. But this is something that we on our part of the street are passionate about. We feel that we should have the parking, and that it shouldn't be dictated by people up the street. on where we park.
Right, thank you. And that is a good point. I should have mentioned that the petition that came in, there were 3 pages of signatures from many residents on the peninsula, but none of those signatures were within this particular block. But it was still legally docketed.
Sure.
According to our regulations.
Okay.
Salman Shah?
Hi, David. Thank you. And I want to thank the council, Traffic Council, for taking the time and going through this this presentation. And David, I want to thank you for this presentation. I am a little bit confused. If I had them side by side, the 2 options, I would have preferred that. But at this point, we can pass that. The way I like to talk, present my talking points are going to be in 3s. 1, I'll make a statement. And then the second will be ask a few clarifying questions because I'm not clear on some of the data points that were presented. And third, I will share some feelings of just being a resident of Newton and being the first house, 15 Islington, right next to the park. So that's the one I represent. So my name is Salman Shah, first house, representing the first house, 15 Islington. And I was not consulted, again, not consulted at all by the petitioners, including, I don't know who filed the petition. I think it was Carrie, at least I found out afterwards, and then I think with the help of the council member, Randy Block. And I was not consulted whatsoever, and I am appalled by that. And then the second thing is I am absolutely, I'm absolutely against it.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second? Did you receive the notice of the meeting in advance? I believe every house on the whole street was notified of the meeting. So you should have received notice of the meeting. It was just that you didn't sign the original petition, right?
That is correct, David. So when I say consulted, I was not consulted by the petitioners. Usually in a neighborhood, you consult the neighbors, and if there's a problem, you submit, try to come up with a problem solution, and you go to the city council if you can't come up with a solution, and it's a process. So again, now, as you said it earlier, I'm just agreeing with what you said earlier, that we were not consulted. I was not consulted, and I am one of the 6 houses that are directly, or 7 houses that are directly impacted, and I am against parking, against both options, frankly. So I can't tell what option is what, but against both options. So I want to just I think there's a story to this. There's a little bit of history to this, right? Commonwealth Carriageway is going under massive construction, right? I mean, we all know that. I want to thank the City of Newton for putting up with this, and State of Massachusetts for funding it, and whoever else is funding it. But as we know, the whole area is under construction for almost 2 years. The people that are impacted, guys, is us the most. We are the most impacted by this. My dear neighbor on 6 Islington who spoke, I think I may have got his Peter. I mean, he's the first house, and I'm the first house on this side. So both sides, we're the most impacted. And others are here too. All 6, 7 people, members are here. And we're impacted on a daily basis for the last 2 years. 2 years. And again, I think once it's all done, it'll be great. But frankly, it hasn't been done. So I feel like we're rushing to a decision when there is a lot of factors that's going to come after what these traffic situation is going to be, and a lot of the parking issues. Because frankly, we thought the carriageway is going to allow for more parking in this area, where right next to the park, and it's not. I mean, there was a game tonight, and you can see the cars are parked all over the place. So I think the analysis that's presented to me, I think it's rushed. And I'm not sure why, and why the petitioner rushed it to the council, because there is, and again, I know it's a lot of pain, because even turning for myself, and I have a small Tesla, I don't even drive a bus or an emergency vehicle, but I did talk to an emergency vehicle person, and they have never had an issue on the bend. So I'm not sure where the safety issue is here, but the point I'm just not understanding is why we're rushing to a solution when the direct impact of what's been happening for 2 years, we're going to feel it for the next 3 to 5 years. And we're jumping to a solution that has, it's going to have directly impact us, and we never filed for this petition. So those are kind of the facts, a statement I wanted to make. And in terms of facts, David, is there any data on how many accidents have happened here, or is that it's not part of the jurisdiction of this council? I mean, let me ask the question, and you can tell me whether it's part of the jurisdiction of the council or not. One, number of accidents in this bend, right, and until the terrace. Two, how the speed on this bend, I think is so 20 miles an hour yellow, which I think is, I don't know what that really means. But people are definitely flying. The data that I collected, people are going about 35.5 to 37 point something. Again, my data is no good. I think I recommend the city collect their own data. And then, I think we need to also understand when the buses turn, and I drop my kids off, right, when I walk them over when I'm here, and the way they turn, they have a hard time turning, and it's 21. Right. So we need to fix a problem, and we're trying to fix a problem that's not really a problem. So I think there should be some root cause analysis done of what is the real problem, and let's fix it. I'll get I'll join the city to help fix that problem. And so I think in terms of my feelings, again, I am from the council members. I mean, I appreciate the people who are on, and I just wish that we all are citizens of Newton, and I think it should be people's, as somebody filed a petition, and thank you for reaching out for giving us a notice. But I think the better practice is that people are consulted before the petitions are filed, because not everybody is used to these kind of processes, frankly, and not everybody has time to get involved. I mean, I'm always on the road. I'm traveling quite a bit, and it's, for me, I took time out tonight to join this, because I knew this is very important to me. So again, 15 Islington, Salman Shah, I am absolutely against it, and I will, and I'm happy to work with the council to come up with a better solution, but I'm not, I'm absolutely against this. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for those comments. I can say that the original petition that came into City Hall talked about that, it's a narrow, curvy section of road, and it's when cars are parked on both sides, the residents that signed, it talked about not having clear sight lines, concerns about access, getting through. It originally, I believe it talked about removing parking on that block. It wasn't clear if it meant both sides or one side. So the way it ended up getting docketed was, one side or both sides. The way that I was looking at it was to, consider the needs of the residents on that first block and retain parking for them on at least one side. So I think at this point, we're going to hear from the public. We have, various options of restricting parking on the east side or on the west side, or no change at all, denying the request, or voting to take no action, which means nothing would happen and it could be redocketed at any point. But this is our normal process. We handle, 80 different items through Traffic Council every year, similar to this one. So this is our normal sort of evaluation that we do. But let's move on to the next person, and I'm sorry if I pronounce your name incorrectly. It might be Ahab Ajaz.
Yeah, not bad. Thank you. Ahab Ajaz, 19 Islington. We're the second home on the right on Islington. Salman mentioned what time it is. This is a very important issue for everybody, but just to demonstrate, I'm calling from UAE. I'm here on business. It's 5 a.m. here. So I've got a statement. I've got a lot of points that I wanted to make. So I just made a statement just to kind of get through it all and have my thoughts clear. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak. I wanted to begin by saying that I strongly support the solutions that improve safety in our neighborhood. It is important to note that all 6 households at the entrance of Islington Road leading up to Ryder Terrace, the ones most directly affected by both proposed parking ban and the ongoing speeding issues, are all united in opposing this ban. In the 6 years that we have lived on Islington, we have not witnessed a single accident, nor have we witnessed or heard of an emergency vehicle not able to access the neighborhood. I think it's also important to bring to the council's attention that these same 6 homes at the entrance of Islington were only informed of this petition after signatures for the alternative filing process had already been collected. This was concerning to me As a resident, as the documented requirement for a petition of this nature requires signatures from at least one owner or tenant of at least half of the affected residences. That clearly did not occur, as all 6 of these homes are unified in opposing the parking ban. As a parent of 3 young children who love to play basketball outside and ride their bikes, safety is always my top priority. However, removing all parking on Islington Road leading up to Ryder Terrace will not necessarily make my neighborhood any safer. In fact, it could increase travel speeds by creating a wider roadway feel and simply push parking problems further down Islington. The primary hazards that we face on Islington Road come from 2 sources. First, excessive speeding by both residents and commercial vehicles. And second, the overflow parking caused by games at Lions Field and visitors at Lions Park, where parking is already very limited. I believe the council should focus on targeted restrictions for field and park visitors rather than imposing a blanket ban that penalizes Islington Peninsula residents. Parked cars along Islington Road actually serve as a natural traffic calming measure, since they require drivers to slow down and proceed with greater caution. To further address the issue of excessive speeding, the council should also consider installing cost-effective temporary speed bumps that can be removed during the winter months. Together, these measures would improve safety without resorting to unnecessary parking ban. A complete no parking restriction would also unfairly burden residents who rely on guest parking, especially families with elderly relatives or young children. If restrictions were only placed on one side of the road, it would create another safety problem. People would be forced to cross a busy street without any crosswalks, which is a hazard in and of itself. There's a real concern about the impact on property values. There's also a real concern of impact of property values for homes that are directly impacted by parking restrictions. Finally, as I mentioned earlier, one immediate action that should be considered is banning parking for Lions Field and Lions Park visitors on Islington Road. From my discussions, this is an immediate solution that all residents of Islington Peninsula would support. Beyond this solution, I urge the council to refrain from taking action at this time and instead take the necessary time to thoroughly study the issues on Islington Road and at Lions Field and Park before making a decision that would be difficult to reverse. I respectfully suggest that the council wait at least a year after construction is completed to properly assess traffic and parking patterns on Islington. From there, the council can propose a comprehensive, thoughtful, and balanced approach that protects both the safety and the interests of residents most affected. Excessive speeding is already a serious problem on Islington. And as Councillor Downs noted in a prior discussion, removing parking would only make the problem worse by encouraging higher speeds and creating even greater hazards for the neighborhood. Thank you.
Thank you very much for all the points you made and for joining us from the other side of the world for this meeting. I think that you're advocating for Traffic Council to take no action on this item at this point, which would allow an item to be redocketed at any point within the next year or beyond. One thing that I did want to respond to is that this item was docketed correctly by our city ordinance. It could be that it's true by city ordinance that any city councilor or any voting member of Traffic Council could docket an item without even any resident signatures. So that's why it was accepted as being docketed correctly and automatically put on an agenda.
I think that's totally fair, but the point I'm making is that is not clear. If you look at the petition forms, that option is not there, right? So there's 2 options of how a petition can be filed. That is not there. So if that's not clear to me or other residents, that should be made clear for future petitions that residents might want to make.
Yeah, that's a really good point. It is in the ordinance, but it's not on the form. So I'll make a note and we can revisit that.
Please do. Thank you.
To Harry Martins.
Hi, I'm Harry Martins. I live with Sue Flink at 26 Islington Road, across from Ahab. And I would also state that we were not included in the petition or questioned, or no discussion occurred between us and the petitioners. And I would just second what Salman was saying, that I think it's premature to make any decision right now, because most of the cars we're seeing are due to the construction on on Comm Ave, where, in front of, all the mess that's going on there. So I think I would recommend that you take no action at all now, because like you've heard, both sides of the street would like to have additional parking for people to come to visit. I think I have a benefit that some of them don't, because my driveway is on Ryder Terrace, so people can park that are coming to see me can park on Ryder. But I don't think that's the case for everybody. And again, I think it's premature to put any kind of restrictions in that area. And I think there are some residents further up on the road that don't necessarily aren't following the speed limit as they come by. So I don't think that's going to change, but just to point out that the residents that are living in that area aren't the ones speeding by or having any issues with the the current status. And we're all probably somewhat at times irritated by the extra cars at Lions due to the games going on, but we understand that should diminish once the construction is complete. So I would suggest that we put this on hold and revisit it if need be after the construction is completed. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next speaker would be John Simmons. I don't know, John Simmons, you sort of left my screen. I don't see you anymore.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh, there you are.
Thank you. Obviously, I can't operate my laptop at this hour.
And we just need to have your address, please.
Pardon? Yes, I said that all. John Simmons, 16 Islington Road. I'm sandwiched between Peter Goddard and Harry Martins on the west side of Islington and across from Saman and Ahab.
So can I just ask, the one slide that I wanted to highlight, is that your house?
Hold on, I need to move.
Is it this one right there?
No, that's actually
no.
Harry. The one on the right there, that's Harry.
Okay.
Okay.
So you're across.
I'm next door to Harry on the other side of the trees in that picture.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. With all that being said, I actually think that Saman, Ahab, and Harry have said virtually everything I would say, and I would implore the council to just consider our request that we table this. It's I believe it's premature. We've been all grinding through a lot of construction traffic, a lot of disruptions to the traffic flow itself, blockages. My wife waited 10 minutes, but while a cement truck was doing something at the intersection there, she couldn't even exit Islington for a while. So it's definitely, just definitely wearing on folks, and I completely understand that. But I do think that these circumstances, I hope, are temporary, and that we will return to something of a more routine traffic pattern. And then we can study this, look at it, and consider alternatives. I think your options, David, would be interesting to discuss at that time, and including the one that Ahab mentions, maybe limiting park usage of this parking. I will say that I did make a request to the police department for data going back as far as possible to look at obstructions and any other abandoned vehicles, etc. I haven't received that information yet because they asked to give them another 15 days to respond to that request. I made that request back in August. But then what I was able to do was just do the web search on the data that's available through the site there, and there is nothing, at least in the most recent history, of any situation in this stretch of road to go off of to say that this really is a problem that needs to be addressed. Again, I understand people's frustration But I think that frustration is born out of the situation that's it surrounds the construction that's going on right now, which should be fine, or should improve when things are done. So with that, I just ask you to give this a pause, and let's revisit sometime later.
Thank you, Mr. Simmons. We'll move on to Selena.
Hi, Selena Mullick. I'm at 15 Islington Road, same household as Salman Shah. So yeah, just directly affected. Thank you for the time, and thank you for the letter that, like you heard, none of us knew about this. So, we're thanks, due to the due process, like being notified. Otherwise, we could have missed this meeting and not been able to sort of voice at least, how we're feeling. I'll just say that, to me, the petition's is very confusing, even sort of like as you sort of read it again. There's this line of sight issue, and I get that it's a bend and we drive it every day. It was slow down, just make sure there's no car in front of me, and it's just cautious driving. So like a lot of our, my fellow neighbors are mentioning, since we live here, we do see that a lot of people speed down. So to me, the answer is not removing parking, but just slowing down. And I think I heard a lot of like what was said by the councilman, for me, resonated on the number 2 item, the Lexington one, which was, this is a beautiful street. You're going to add signs to it. It's going to become ugly. If we remove parking, I can bet that people will be driving even faster than we already see. And we have kids. I've got little kids. I'm going to be scared for them. I'm scared sometimes driving out, reversing out. I do it really carefully, and suddenly out of nowhere, I see a car come. So this doesn't feel like the solution. I'm confused of like, where this came to just remove parking as the answer. And it's sort of demanding that we, get affected by it. We're the ones living in front of the houses. Again, it came out of nowhere. So confusion, don't agree to removing parking. And I also don't think it solves for whatever the petitions seems to be asking for around this blind corner, which is really just careful driving. It is a wide roads, which is nice. Like I've seen many other streets in Newton that are even more narrow and with, very sharp turns, sharper than ours, in fact. So again, I don't know if this is a good solve for this street, and then what does that snowball into other streets for Newton?
Very good, thank you. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
The last hand I see is Hannah Ajaz.
Yep. Thanks. Yeah, I'm Hannah Ajaz. I'm at 19 Islington, so same household as Ahab, although he's on a different side of the world. So I am the second house, and I basically echo what everyone here has said, so I don't want to go into every item again. But I work from home, and my office basically faces Islington Road, so I see this all day long. And to me, the biggest thing, and I think folks have said this too, is speed. If we remove parking, folks are just going to be, flying. It is a little bit of an incline to get in the neighborhood and a little bit of a decline to get out of the neighborhood. So, folks definitely speed up to get in and kind of fly down to get out. So, as they have said, we have 3 young kids. They play outside out front, and we are nervous for that every day when we're seeing folks speed by, and we try to tell people to slow down. So I know that this has come up as a parking item, but as Selena and others have mentioned, I don't agree with either option here. I don't think that's the solution to the problem that we have. Just today, I was looking around, and I'm seeing folks, even though the parking is open on the carriageway, folks are still not parking there. They're kind of still parking on Islington. I think they've maybe either become used to it, or they're avoiding that construction area completely because there's just cones everywhere. So I think we're still going through a lot on Comm Ave and at the entrance that I don't think it's the right time to make a decision on this. So I don't agree with either option.
Thank you very much. And if you're done speaking, if you could take your hand down, just so I could see who's left to speak. And Harry Martins, did you want to make one more comment?
Hi, this is actually Susan Flink, resident as well with Harry here, and I just wanted to endorse, I agree wholeheartedly with everything I've heard about the speed being the challenge rather than narrowing the street in some way or widening the street in some way for by removing the parking. Speed humps or bumps sound right to me, but I just really wanted to agree wholeheartedly with what I've heard.
Thank you so much. And thank you all for all the comments. We can close the public comment period now. I mean, this is an interesting one that we received a petition that was signed by 3 pages worth of residents, and everybody was notified of this item on the street, but the only comments that we've heard were just from these 6 houses so far. So I mean, I find that kind of interesting. But let's move on to Councillor Downs.
Hi, David, and I'm going to have to bow out after this, but I think this is a problem in search of a solution in search of a problem from what I'm hearing, and also even from your diagram. The construction is still going on, unfortunately, for the neighbors, but I think it'll be fabulous when it's done. And I think they're right. We should wait to see how it pans out after construction is finished. And as I said again, I think that people are used to going fast out the end of Islington Road and used to going fast down Commonwealth Avenue once they get there. Being a little more cautious is probably a better solution. The parking does help with that. So I would move to deny or to do no action necessary on this. But I'm reaching the end of my ability to stay up at this point.
I know we have 4 more items after this item. So,
and I'm aware of that. I'm sorry.
So Mr. Shaw, do you have anything different?
Yeah, so I just quickly, I think all 7, I can speak, we have all 7 members that are here. I mean, everybody's here, you can see them. They're not in the same place. We all showed up because it's important to us. So Councillor Downs, I appreciate your comment. I would strongly suggest that council denies it, watches it, but denies it. And then even if the people have problem, they can come back and file it again, the same people. And whoever helped them, they can help them, right? In fact, we will help them. So at this point, I would strongly suggest that council denies this, and then we wait and see what happens. And at that point, if there's need to bring it up, we will work with the council member, whoever put this forward, to try to see if there's a better solution for this.
Okay, thank you.
I'm happy to make that motion.
Okay, well, so let's talk about that for a minute. So assuming we're not going to be approving option 1 or option 2, we could either vote to deny this item. If we vote to deny the item, it could be appealed. This item could be appealed by the residents of the street or by any city councilor or by any member of traffic council between now and October 1st. And so that means that this item stays alive and moves over to Public Safety and Transportation Committee for the City Council to continue discussing it in a different venue. That's if we vote to deny it. If we vote to NAN the item, to take no action, that ends the item. It's removed from the docket. It's gone. It could be redocketed at any point in the future. You would not have to wait a year, which you would have to wait if it was approved or denied to discuss the same item again. So it seems to me that we're looking for a vote to NAN this item, to take no action. We don't know what's going to happen once the project is done. It is a street that is less than 24 feet wide, right? So we talk about that a lot. What would happen on a street that's less than 24 feet wide if you have cars parked opposite one another? Could an emergency vehicle get through? So that is true. That's not changing. We just don't know what's going to happen with the parking once the construction's done. If it is the case that we start to see more interest in parking on this block of Islington, and a lot more vehicles parked side by side, does it become a safety issue? Maybe it would at that point, but it seems like from what we're hearing, it might be better to wait and sort of see what happens down the road. Mitch, I see your hand up.
Yeah, I would I would agree with you that NAN is the best way of going. I mean, I was also surprised that all the speakers were those that were not on the petition, and those that were on the petition didn't seem to specify support. And I think if the item comes back as a new item, as you've described it, I would think that the 6 or 7 abutters would be part of that discussion, and that all parties would try to encourage some kind of compromise if that's warranted at the time. So I would support NAN.
Right. I mean, I guarantee you that if we start seeing cars parked end to end on both sides of that block, we would hear right away from the residents of that block to make some type of change for safety. We don't see that obviously at this point. Councillor Block.
Thank you, David. Well, I co-docketed this item. I want everyone to know I'm neutral regarding solutions, proposals, but there seemed to be as indicated by the number of people who signed the petition who live farther up the Islington Peninsula, a lot of concern around the congestion at this intersection. So I think it's probably wise to take no action at this time. And I too am surprised that that we're only hearing from the people who are most affected by it, but maybe that's human nature. So I really appreciate everybody's comments on this, and we may have more of a problem when the dust finally settles with this construction, which has gone on, unfortunately, for quite some time. So I think we will probably be back at this, but right now, this does feel like the right step to take. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. So thank you. And I would just remind everybody that it's now 9:45. We have 4 items after this item, so I'd like to just get moving. So I'd like to go ahead and make the motion. And I think actually Councilor Downs, didn't you already make the motion to NAN this item? I think you did. So is Councilor Downs still here? Okay, I don't see Councilor Downs. So I will make the motion to NAN this item. I will call the roll, starting with Captain Devine on the NAN.
Aye.
Mr. Codd.
Aye.
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
Councilor Downs still here or no? I think not. All right. So, and I vote aye. So that's 4-0. We're ending this item. It is now off of our docket. So thank you all, and you all have a good night. We're going to go on to our next item.
Thank you.
So our next item is TC. Let me just make a few corrections. All right, so TC 4025, and I think the rest of these are going to go pretty quickly. David Kozis, Traffic Council Chair, on behalf of area neighbors, requesting the addition of stop signs on Cobb Place where it intersects with DeWinda Road to clarify right-of-way. Note that this item only requests stop signs on the Cobb Place approaches, not an all-way stop sign. Or not an all-way stop. Here's the location, DeWinda Road and Cobb Place in Waubun. Here's 2 photos of DeWinda Road at Cobb Place, looking in both directions. And here is Cobb Place at DeWinda Road, looking westbound. It's toward the private way. And here's looking in the opposite way. This is looking eastbound from the private way across to Cobb Place. So we look at guidance from the MUTCD. It's the Manual for Uniform Traffic Control Devices. Basically, what's important here is for us to consider whether adding a stop sign would be helpful in terms of establishing the right of way. I think I'll just say that that's guidance letter A. So our recommendation is to approve the stop signs. We do think that it would be helpful. It would establish who has the right of way, who needs to stop. So we would be looking to add the stop sign on Cobb Place in the westbound direction and on Cobb Place in the eastbound direction. So that is our recommendation, and we have the language here to be able to vote on it. So I'm going to see if there's anyone from the public who wishes to speak on this item before we vote. All right, seeing none. We have the language in front of us to be able to vote. And this would now be TPR 997. So we're looking, I'll make a motion to approve the language for TC 4025 of TPR 997 to install these two stop signs, Cobb Place at the window eastbound and westbound. Any comments? Seeing none, I will I'll call the roll on this item, starting with Captain Devine.
Aye.
Mr. Cod,
Aye.
Mr. Fishman,
Aye.
and myself, David Kosis, votes aye, so that's 4-0. TPR 997. And we will wait until the 20-day appeals period and then be able to install the signs. Our next item is TC 4125. David Kosis, Traffic Council Chair, requesting a slight change to the location of the accessible parking space on Homer Street in front of the library due to recent reconstruction. This is probably the easiest item we've ever had at Traffic Council. This is the location in front of the library. It was recently, this whole area was repaved with improved bike lanes. We slightly relocated this accessible parking space that's shown in this photo. And all this item does is update our traffic and parking regulations to reflect the slightly different location of where this accessible space is located. And this is the language that allows us to accomplish this. So let me just see if there's any comments on this. Okay, seeing none, I'll make the motion to approve the language of TPR 998 as reflected on this slide on page 63. Any last comments? Okay, so I will call the roll, starting with Captain Devine.
Aye.
Mr. Cod.
Aye.
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
And myself, David Kosis, votes aye. That's 4-0. That is approved. Our next item is TC 2825. Adrian Ayala, Transportation Engineer, on behalf of area neighbors, requesting the addition of a stop sign at the end of Radcliffe Road, where it intersects with Tamworth Road, to clarify right-of-way. Note that this item, or that this docket item, only requests a stop sign at the end of Radcliffe Road, not an always stop. So this item came to Adrian, who used to work in our department, through one of our city 311 requests from a resident who requested a stop sign at this location, the end of Radcliffe Road at Tamworth Road. He was the traffic engineer for our division, one of the traffic engineers, and he agreed with that request. So he docketed this item. Here's what Tamworth Road looks like at Radcliffe Road in both directions. And here is Radcliffe Road, where the stop sign would be posted looking east toward Tamworth Road. So this is kind of like a T intersection. And when we consider whether or not we get a lot of these requests, and there's really no warrants for when we would be adding a stop sign in this location. It is an implied stop. You're supposed to be stopping. It doesn't seem very clear who has the right of way. So we do agree that even though a stop sign is not required, it is allowed. There's not a reason to avoid installing a stop sign at this intersection. I do think it will help establish the right of way. And so that is our recommendation, to approve the stop sign at this location, and we have the language to be able to vote on it. And so I see that there's still some people here, I think from the neighborhood. Does anyone wish to speak on this item before we vote? Sally, is that you? Sally Lipschitz. It says Nelson.
My audio on now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
Okay, I don't know if you can see me, but
I can see part of your face.
I do first of all, thank you very much for considering this. I will say that even though we are talking about it not for speed control, that is one of the major problems along Radcliffe Road, which is a cut through from Quinnipiquin to Chestnut. And this, we hope, will help with that speeding that occurs there every day. But I wanted to say, or ask rather, if you could bring the picture back up that looks eastbound. Is that where the stop sign would go?
Yes, I believe that that's where it would go. We have a transportation superintendent who's been here for 30 years. She's in charge of deciding precisely where the sign would go. We would just be approving it at Radcliffe Road, at Tamworth Road, but the transportation engineer would, after the appeals process, go and determine exactly where that sign is posted.
Okay, I can say that the neighbors had a meeting last week, and one of the concerns was where the stop sign would go. And I don't know that the consensus would be 100% anymore if that stop sign goes there. I feared when I walked down the street that that is exactly where it would go. It doesn't change anything for me, but I do think there are some neighbors for whom it might change something. So if anybody else is still around from the neighborhood, I hope they will speak up and say what they think. I still am in favor of having it.
Okay. So we have one resident in favor. Would any other resident like to speak on this item before we call the vote?
Your audio's high.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Someone unmuted. It says Robert and Barbara.
Yes. Can you hear me? This is Barbara Brustowitz.
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. We're located at 12 Radcliffe Road, and in the photo that we now have on the screen, you can see a little section of our paved driveway. Our concern is that if the stop sign is located where you're indicating here, we would have problems with cars blocking access to our driveway. My recommendation would be to move it further away from our driveway so that it would be closer to 29 Tamworth Road, where the Johnsons live. And by the way, Chris Johnson is the one who petitioned for this stop sign. So while we are 100% behind the installation of a stop sign, I have a problem with where this particular stop sign is being placed.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to follow what you mean. So if there is no stop sign, like what we have right now, it seems that much more likely the cars would be parking close to your driveway. But when a stop sign's installed, it seems much less likely that a car would be parking close to your driveway. So
no, we're
describe it a little.
Yes, we're suggesting that the stop sign be pushed forward, further away from our driveway. That it be at the beginning of the next door neighbor's driveway, which is 29 Tamworth Road, and which is more or less midpoint at this T intersection.
So, okay, maybe Ned wants to comment on this as well, but I guess what I could say is that traffic council, like our role is to vote on putting it at this intersection, Radcliffe and Tamworth. We do have our transportation superintendent, who is a traffic engineer and who has a lot of experience determining what makes the most sense in terms of where exactly to place it. So I think when we vote, we would not be able to say exactly where that stop sign is going to be positioned. It could very well be in this exact location.
Would we have any future input?
Ned, why don't you make a comment on that? I see your hand up.
Yeah, I would just say, I mean, you know, we've heard your comment tonight. You know, you're having input, you know, tonight, and we can take that into account. But you know, again, as David explained, the traffic council's role is to sort of establish traffic and parking regulations, like sort of more conceptually in principle, and then it is to, you know, the city's professional staff to determine, you know, specific placement and design based on sight lines, safety, you know, factors related to specific roadway conditions. You know, I would say that, you know, it sounds like your concern is that when a when a car is stopped at the stop sign, that it would be blocking your driveway.
That's correct.
Oh, okay.
Which it might be, but Radcliffe Road and Tamworth Road are both relatively low volume streets, and that, you know, that condition would you know, would really not persist for, you know, sort of a significant proportion of, you know, of time.
I would beg to differ with your assessment of the amount of the volume on this street. There are periods of time during the day, specifically in the morning, when there are numerous cars speeding through, one after the other. So my concern is that if you have a number of cars and you have the stop sign, we'll have a backup of cars directly impacting access to our driveway.
Okay, thank you for that comment. I see two hands up. They both say Nelson Lipschutz. I know one of them is Sally, so why don't you go ahead, Sally?
I am sorry. I don't know how to change the name on Nelson's monitor. Okay, I can say this. There are times when the application Waze sends cars down Chestnut, across Tamworth and Radcliffe to Quinnipiac to Route 128. And when it does that, my Ring camera goes off every 2 seconds. It happens several times a day. It happens in the morning and it happens in the afternoon, evening. When there is construction on 95 going north and people are routed off of 95 or even south, they come up Radcliffe and Tamworth at high speeds frequently. So we could have backups there. It's not a crazy thought and it's not rare. We're not a quiet cul-de-sac. We are a very well-used set of streets. That's all I have to say at the moment.
Sorry, I had muted myself. I just wanted to thank you, Sally. So thank you all for the public comments. My opinion is that this would be safer in general to establish the right of way. It might mean that you might need to wait a second or two when you're exiting your driveway if there happens to be a car coming to the stop sign. So I still would be in favor of voting to support it, even if it ends up that the stop sign is located at this exact location. Again, we do have the appeals period. So if there's residents who feel very, very strongly that they do not want that stop sign there, there is the option of appeal. If this is approved, there is the option of appealing that vote. And, you know, this item would be, you know, sent to Public Safety and Transportation. Like I said, everyone would be re-notified, and then the city council would have the final vote. So I'm just letting you know, I would support putting in a stop sign, but there is the appeals process. Are there any other comments from anyone before a motion is made?
I would just appreciate the ability to maybe work with the engineer who makes the ultimate decision as to location, and be allowed to, you know, to provide feedback, to provide, you know, additional input.
So again, I think that you have provided your input here at this meeting. She does work right here in our building with us, and we will talk about it with her on Monday. But our practice is to let our professional staff, you know, do their work in the areas that they have expertise.
I appreciate that.
Thank you. Mitch.
I guess I agree with the last speaker that it would be helpful to locate it and to have that one house look at it. I remember being out there. It's a pretty big intersection. Maybe there's nothing you can do about it, and it's probably I would assume, David, you're supporting it because it's a good way of also slowing down traffic that may come through at the various times discussed. But I think it would be useful to.
I support it because I think it establishes the right of way. Who has the right of way? That's
I agree with that too, but I'm just saying that we don't usually have this kind of, you know, detailed discussion. I think this is probably something where it would be useful to have that further discussion. So I don't know what the procedure would be, but I would think that would be a useful activity.
We will. Sorry, we will.
No, please go ahead.
Yeah, we will pass along the concern about the driveway and the desire to have the stop sign placed as far from the driveway as is safe. And we will work closely with our traffic superintendent to make sure that she understands that. And beyond that, we will leave it to her professional judgment.
Thank you for that.
Right. So we are going to be voting now. If it is approved, you know, we can't say it right now, even though we're going to pass on the messages like Ned said. We can't say exactly where that stop sign is going to be relocated or positioned. So it's going to be up to you or the neighbors to decide whether or not they wish to appeal it, not knowing exactly where it's going to end up. So I think that that's where we are. So, and would anyone like to make a motion?
I move that we approve the request.
Okay, so we have a motion to approve the language. It would be TPR 999 to install a stop sign at the intersection of Radcliffe Road at Tamworth Road. Any last comments? I'm going to call the roll. Captain Devine.
Aye.
Mr. Todd.
Aye.
Mr. Fishman.
Aye.
And an aye from me, David Kokas. That's 4-0. Thank you very much to the neighbors. And again, if it's appealed, you have until October 1st. If it's not appealed, the sign will be installed at some point after October 1st. Thank you. So our last item.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you. Have a good night. Our last item is going to be a quick one. It's TC 4225, Ned Codd, Director of Transportation for DPW, requesting a trial followed by potential updates to the TPR, including small changes to parking regulations, which may result from various roadway projects across the city, including the following: traffic calming on Elliott Street between Linden Street and Wetherell Street, traffic calming at various points along Webster Street and Lexington Street, a raised intersection at Waverly Avenue, Franklin Street, a raised intersection at Brookline Street, Spalding Lane, Hartman Road, a bump out at the Commonwealth Avenue, Fuller Street, Bay Street intersection, repaving work in the Beacon Street, Langley Road, Sumner Street, Chase Street area, and a DCR project at the Hammond Pond Parkway, Beacon Street, Hobart Road intersection. So this item was docketed. We are recommending that all of these different traffic calming and various projects proceed. There's a lot that the city's doing all across the city. We want to just hold this item as a trial. So, all these items will be moving forward. And then once the construction is done, we would be much more easily able to look at, the specific location, see and compare it to our traffic and parking regulations, especially the parking in all of these areas, and to see whether anything at all needs to change. And then we would put this back on a future traffic council agenda and be able to vote on the new language. So we are looking for a motion to hold this item. Are there any comments from anyone? Okay. So
I make a
yes, go ahead.
I make a motion to hold this item.
Okay, so we have a motion to hold. I'm going to call the roll. Captain Devine?
Aye.
Mr. Cobb?
Aye.
Mr. Fishman?
Aye.
And then an aye from me, Mr. Kosis. It's 4-0, and that is a 4-0 hold for trial. And that concludes all of our business for this evening. I believe our next traffic council meeting is going to be on October 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, October 16th. And so we will see you all then. Thank you all. Have a good night.